You know, they say to build an unbreakable safe, you first have to learn how to crack one. That's exactly what we're doing today. We're going to open up the Ethical Hackers Playbook to see how cybersecurity pros think like attackers to find vulnerabilities before the bad guys do. Let's get into it. So, this is the million-dollar question for any organization, right? You can build all these digital walls, but how do you know if they'll actually hold up? Well, the only way to know for sure is to try and break in yourself. That idea, that proactive attack, is the whole point behind penetration testing.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to survey the digital battlefield to get a sense of what we're actually protecting. Then we'll get to know our adversaries, map out how they think, walk through the official 7-phase playbook that ethical hackers use, and finally, we'll check out the tools of the trade.
Okay, so before we even think about breaking into a system, we've got to ask a fundamental question. What does secure actually mean? Well, at the heart of all information security, there are three core goals. Every secure system is really built on these three pillars, and we call it the CIA triad. First up is confidentiality, basically keeping secrets secret. Next is integrity, which means making sure data isn't messed with or changed without permission. And last is availability, which is just making sure you can get to your stuff when you need it. Now, an attacker's goal, it's simple. They just want to flip that whole thing on its head, cause improper disclosure, unauthorized alteration, or just plain disruption. Every single hack you hear about is an attack on one of these three principles. If you're defending a castle, you really need to know if you're up against one thief with a ladder or an entire army with catapults. Well, it's the exact same idea in cybersecurity. Understanding who your attacker is, what motivates them, and what they're capable of, that's absolutely key. So let's break down the major players. On one end of the spectrum, you've got your script kiddies. They're usually amateurs, using tools other people built. Then you have the black hats. These are the criminals, plain and simple. Gray hats are interesting. They kind of operate in a moral gray area, maybe breaking the law for what they see as a good reason. The heroes of our story, though, are the white hats. These are the pros, the penetration testers, who get hired to find weaknesses. And finally, you have cyber terrorists, who are all about causing as much chaos as possible to make an ideological point. Look, the pros don't just sit around and wait to get hit. They're proactive. They try to anticipate attacks before they happen. And they do this using a structured process called threat modeling, which is basically like creating a map of everything that could possibly go wrong. And of course, there are established playbooks for this. PASTA, for instance, is a 7-stage process that's really good for high-level risk management because it ties security directly to business goals. Octave is more inward-looking, helping an organization figure out what its most critical data assets are and how to protect them. And then there's Stride, which we'll look at a bit closer. It was created by Microsoft to help developers catch security flaws while they're actually writing the code. All right, let's zoom in on STRI because it's a big one. It's an acronym that helps developers think like an attacker. S is for spoofing, pretending to be someone you're not. T is for tampering with data. R is for repudiation, which is when a user can deny they did something. I is for information disclosure, a data leak. D is for denial of service, crashing the system. And finally, E is for elevation of privilege. And this is a huge one. It's when an attacker gets more power and access than they're supposed to have. By running through this checklist, developers can build tougher software right from the very start. So, how do the white hats actually put all this theory into practice? Well, they follow a very formal, very structured methodology. This is not random hacking, it's a science. And the gold standard in the industry is called the Penetration Testing Execution Standard, or PTES for short. Okay, so the PTS playbook breaks a professional test into 7 distinct phases. It all starts with pre-engagement. Then comes intelligence gathering. After that, it's threat modeling, where you start connecting the dots on potential attack paths. Phase 4 is vulnerability analysis, using tools to find specific weak spots. Then comes the main event, exploitation, where you actually try to break in. That's followed by post-exploitation, which is all about seeing how deep you can go once you're inside. And it all wraps up with reporting, where you give the client the full breakdown. Let's dig into those first 2 crucial steps.
The first phase, pre-engagement, is arguably the most important one of all. Seriously, this is where the rules of the game are set. The ethical hacker and the client sit down and agree on exactly what's in scope to be tested, and, just as important, what's off-limits. This is the legal get-out-of-jail-free card. This agreement is what separates a professional security audit from a felony. It's all about getting permission and defining the battlefield before anyone fires a single digital shot.
Once the rules are set, the real fun begins with intelligence gathering, or what we call reconnaissance. Think of it as the digital version of casing the joint before a heist. The goal here is to learn literally everything you can about the target, what tech they use, who works there, what their public footprint looks like, anything that might reveal a potential way in.
Now, reconnaissance really comes in two main flavors. Passive recon is all about stealth. It's whisper quiet. You're gathering public information from places like social media, news articles, even job postings, and you never once directly touch the target's systems. Active recon, on the other hand, is a lot louder. This is where you're directly poking and prodding the target, running network scans to see what doors and windows are open. You get way more detailed info, but you also run the risk of tripping an alarm and letting the defenders know you're there. All right, for our last section, let's talk about the gear. Let's look at some of the common weapons and tactics that both the bad guys and the good guys, the ethical hackers, use during a test.
Okay, let's run through some malware types. A virus is a piece of code that kind of latches onto a clean file, like a parasite, to spread itself. A Trojan horse is malware that's disguised as a totally legitimate program, tricking you into running it. Ransomware, well, that's just digital extortion. It locks up all your files and demands money for the key. And a rootkit is a super stealthy tool that's designed to burrow deep into a system to give an attacker a secret backdoor they can use over and over.
But here's the thing. Not all attacks are about technology. In fact, a lot of the time, the weakest link in any security system isn't the software. It's the people who use it. And that's where social engineering comes in. It's not hacking computers, it's hacking the human mind.
We've all seen the most common type, which is phishing. Those generic, deceptive emails trying to get you to click a bad link or give up your password. But a much more surgical and frankly dangerous version is called whaling. This is where attackers go after the big fish, like a CEO or a CFO. They'll craft a highly personalized email to trick that executive into doing something huge, like authorizing a massive wire transfer or leaking sensitive company secrets. The damage can be absolutely devastating.
So, we've cracked open the ethical hacker's playbook. We've seen the methods, the mindset, and the tools they use. And remember, the goal isn't just to break things, it's to find the cracks so that they can be sealed up for good. And that really leaves us all with one final question to think about. If you looked at your own digital life through the eyes of a hacker, what weaknesses would you find?